What is going on, YouTube? It's Tyler from Mission VR, where it's my mission to bring you guys good quality VR content. So today's video, I just did a top 10 quest games video, and a lot of those games are actually shooters, and that's just because that's my preference, even though I do think that those are the top 10 games. Obviously, that's my opinion, right? So today's video is going to be a little different. We're going to be going over the top 3 games in every single genre of quest games available, within reason. Obviously, there's actually no strategy games really on Quest, so couldn't include that category, but, you know, RPGs, action, adventure, survival horror, rhythm, puzzles, and shooters, of course. All those genres are going to be covered in this video, so if you're interested in one of those genres and maybe shooters aren't your forte, then this video is probably going to be for you. So we're going to be going over the top 3 quest games in every single genre here, so make sure you guys do drop a like on this video, subscribe to my channel, and let's go ahead and hop into our first category. Alright guys, so with our first category here, we have PvP shooters. Obviously, this is focused on the PvP side of things rather than PvE. So if this is, if you're into PvP games, these are the top 3 shooters that you can get in Quest, in my opinion. Starting with number 1 here, we have Pavlov. Now, Pavlov is obviously a great game. I think the mechanics in it are honestly sloppy compared to some other shooters out there like Contractors and Onward. But the problem with Contractors and Onward is, as much as I feel like they're probably fundamentally better games, they don't have the player base Pavlov does. You're going to be able to find a lot of people to play with in Pavlov. There's a lot of content in Pavlov, and the gun mechanics really aren't that bad. They're still really good, serviceable gun mechanics, full manual reload. So I think Pavlov's a great game. There's a lot of things to do in Pavlov, and it is a lot of fun. If you're looking for, a good community PvP shooter, this one will get it done. All right, so with our second PvP shooter on this list, we have Hyperdash. Hyperdash is a great game, nice team-based shooter, team objectives, so all kinds of different game modes, and there's actually a good variety of maps in this game. It's a game that I honestly put over 100 hours into. I love this game so much. The music was just so fitting. It just fit the rhythm of the game. It's fast-paced. You're jumping around the map. You're dashing over rails. You're sliding down rails, killing people. It's just an awesome game. This one is one that I really think is, underlooked and definitely needs to be looked at more because it's just so much fun to play. Great PvP shooter. Can't say enough good things about Hyperdash. And finally, obviously, it was my number 1 pick on the top 10 list. It is Population 1. This game is solid, and as much as people have a stigmatism out towards battle royales, this game's amazing. It really does. It's smooth. It runs really well. It's a ton of fun to play with your friends. It's just a game where you could just play over and over and over again, and they constantly have events going on to update the map. Like right now, they currently have a winter event, Christmas event going on, so the whole map's covered in snow. It changes the terrain a little bit. It's just overall a really good game. I cannot complain at all about this one. I love the community of this game. I love the competitiveness of this game. It's smooth. The weapons feel good to use. It's a good game overall, and I think you're not going to have any problems if you buy Population 1. Alright, and with our next category here, we have action adventure shooters. Now, these are games that focus a little bit more on PvE content, maybe with a campaign mode or something rather than PvP content. And these are the top 3 that I feel are available currently. And we're going to start off with number 1 as Medal of Honor. Now, I love Medal of Honor. I know that finding a PvP lobby in Medal of Honor is tough because not a lot of people are playing the PvP, and that's why it's not in that category, because I wouldn't recommend that game for PvP. Now, however, I think that with a 7 to 10 hour campaign, depending on your pace going through the game, I think that it's a really good, solid title. Medal of Honor is a lot of fun. I enjoyed this game thoroughly. It's not the most smooth game I've ever played, and its port over to the Quest kind of has, a little bit of graphical downgrade compared to the PC, but even the PC version wasn't optimized great. But either way, I loved this game. Thought it was a ton of fun, and it put me in that World War II setting, and it gave me some environments and some missions that I really did enjoy playing. I think this one's worth it, and it's a lot of fun if you pick it up. So with the next one on this list, we have Phantom Covert Ops. This game's really good. It's a solid, really solid title that gives you this feeling of saving the world. You're sitting in a kayak while doing it. It's an interesting seated experience. It's actually a great experience for people who might have motion sickness. problems because you're sitting in a kayak, you're moving the kayak as you would in real life, so it doesn't give you that feeling of you're moving while not moving, if that makes any sense. So, but Phantom Covert Ops gives you a nice campaign. It gives you the sense of saving the world. It kind of gives you James Bondy like vibes as you're moving through the levels. The only complaint with this game here is the AI can be a little bit dull at times, but I think you can really look past that in this game, and it's worth playing. The campaign's a lot of fun, and the mechanics are good in this game, graphics are solid in this game. It's definitely a top 3 action adventure shooter. And finally, with our last action-adventure shooter here on this list, this is one I just did a review for, and it's a fresh game right on the market, and this is After the Fall. The reason I put this in the action-adventure shooters category is because nobody plays a PvP, and it's a total waste of development time. This is kind of a looter shooter to some extent as well. There's not a ton of content in this game yet, but what is there is strong, and I really did enjoy playing this game. I've put probably 40 hours into it already, as it just came out not even that long ago. But I do have preference, check out the review on my channel for this game. If you're not somebody who likes looter shooters and grinding to upgrade your weapons and your characters type of games, and you're only looking to play one level one time, I would not buy this game. There's not enough content in it yet. But if you are somebody that enjoys that and loves the thrill of going up in difficulties and fighting against hard zombie waves, this game's gonna be a lot of fun for you. And I did really enjoy my playthrough of this game. I think it's a solid game, and I think as they continue to add more content to it, it's just gonna get better and better over time. Okay, moving right down the list here, we are going to be talking about straight up action adventure games now, not just shooters. And like I said, I needed to break those up because there's a lot of shooters on this list, and there's some other action adventure games that I feel like definitely need attention. And the first one is Tales of Galaxy's Edge. Now, this one, I guess, kind of is a shooter. You're shooting blasters, but it's more of a Star Wars based game, and I definitely, wanted to separate that into its own category. Tales from Galaxy's Edge is a great game now that you can buy the DLC. I say that because you have to buy the DLC for this game to be worth it, because the base game's $24.99 and the DLC is $10. So you're really looking at a $35.99 game here, but the DLC adds a ton of content. You're looking at almost a 10-hour campaign now, and you're in the Star Wars universe, so it's just an awesome game overall. You're going to have a lot of fun playing this one, especially if you're a big Star Wars nerd. Our next pick on this list is going to be Death Unchained. Now, Death Unchained is a really awesome Dark Souls-y kind of like experience. You're more focused on archery in this game than anything, but it is roguelike, and there's some really beautiful levels that have been crafted, and the replay value in this game is kind of insane. So with that many levels and the allowance of levels to be reshuffled and all that stuff, there's a lot of replay value in this game. I think you're easily going to be able to put 40 to 50 hours in this game, and for the price you're going to get it for, it's absolutely worth it. Plus the graphics are beautiful. This is a solid game, and if this is kind of your thing, archery, Dark Souls vibes, then I absolutely would pick this one up. And lastly, in our action adventure category, we have The Wizard's Dark Times. This game's a solid wizard game, and the hand gesture magic just gives you that extra sense of immersion where you have to learn the gestures in order to actually cast your spells. I really enjoyed that. I think that the campaign was a little shorter than I would have liked, but overall I look back on my playthrough of this game and it did leave a lasting impact on me, and I think that that's the most important thing here. You're gonna have a lot of fun. There's some levels in The Wizard's Dark Times that's gonna really get your blood going, because you're like, wow, I can't believe I'm experiencing this right now. I really loved this game. I think it's worth picking up for the price, absolutely. And if you're into magic casting games, you're gonna really enjoy this one. Okay, and right on into our next category here, we're gonna be talking about RPGs. Now, admittedly, RPG games, this is a light category on the Quest. There's not a lot of options yet. And actually, some of the games in this list, I wouldn't, in a true sense of an RPG, I wouldn't classify them as role-playing games fully, but there's just some of those elements in these games that weren't in the other games that I think, classified, I guess, as an RPG, and this is the best that's available on Quest at the moment, at least in my opinion, in my knowledge. If there's more, please do let me know. But first up, Blade and Sorcery Nomad. Again, I don't know if I would classify this as a full-blown RPG, but there is RPG mechanics in this game, especially with the dungeons they've added and the ability to, get weapons and unlock new perks and all that stuff. You're kind of going through the dungeons, you're progressing your character, and that's, I guess, in a sense, an RPG game, right? But Blade and Sorcery is a lot of fun, physics-based combat. I think it's a really solid game. It obviously has been, highly touted throughout the VR community for years now. It's a good game, and it's definitely worth the buy. All right, and with our next game here, we have Until You Fall. Until You Fall is an absolutely awesome, epic title. This game cannot be talked about enough. I love Until You Fall. I've put a lot of hours into this game. The reason why I'm classifying it as an RPG is because you do have the ability to upgrade your weapon and your character and your stats in this game, and every single run is different as you go through and you unlock run-based buffs, basically. So your weapon might do more damage in this run, and it might have more abilities in this run, and as you keep going, you beating areas, you keep unlocking it, you have a choice between 3 buffs. It's a great game. I love Until You Fall. The way the combat flows in this game, it makes you feel like a badass. It's an amazing title, and I absolutely think that it should be bought, and this is probably my strongest pick on this list, but that's my opinion personally. But I love Until You Fall. And lastly here, we have Demeo. Now, Demeo is not an RPG in the traditional sense of, I'm upgrading my character and moving through the game world. This is more of a tabletop, game where you're advancing through a series of dungeons to beat a boss, and you're doing it with friends. So kind of not really an RPG, but like I said, the quest doesn't have a lot of RPGs in it, so I guess you could classify this as kind of a role-playing game, role-playing tabletop game. Demeo is a lot of fun, though. They've added a lot more content since launch. I wouldn't have necessarily said go buy it right now at launch, because there was only 1 series of dungeons, which kind of sucks, but now there's 3, and that definitely gives you a lot more playtime in the game and a lot more replay value. Demeo is a lot of fun. The graphics are cool, and it's definitely a lot of fun to play with friends, because you can kind of just BS while you're moving through, and there's definitely some challenging areas where you have to strategically use your skill sets to get through them. I loved Demeo. I thought it was a great game, and it's definitely worth the buy. All right, with our next category here, we have survival horror games. If you're into survival horror games, these are the 3 best in my opinion. And starting up right number 1, Saints and Sinners. Saints and Sinners, The Walking Dead zombie game. It's a full title. Actually, it's kind of a miracle this game runs on Quest, and I've said that probably in every video I talk about this. I can't believe if for when it released, like if it released right now, I would be like a little bit more, hey, yeah, the Quest has been out for 2 years. This game runs on Quest 1, so that's kind of insane, right? But it's a good game. It's nice, solid, a lot of content in this game for a single player game. Wish they had a little bit of multiplayer, but overall, there's a lot of items in this game, a lot of objectives in this game. It's killing zombies in VR at its absolute finest. This is definitely a really good survival horror game, and there's some good moments in this game that give you that survival horror aesthetic. With our next survival horror game here, we are going to be talking about Resident Evil 4. Resident Evil 4 just released not that long ago, and it definitely kind of took over VR by storm because Resident Evil was just such a beloved game, and Resident Evil 4 definitely got it done in VR. It's pretty much the game. It's pretty much Resident Evil 4 in VR, and that's the most amazing thing. It wasn't like some cheap port where they lost, a lot of the portions of the game. The game is pretty complete in my opinion, and I really enjoyed this title. Just a fun game to play. Lots of people are talking about it. It's one that if you pick it up, you're not going to be disappointed in your purchase, especially if you are a Resident Evil fan. It's going to give you that feeling of being in VR and being in the world. Obviously, the graphics are a little bit downgraded because it's an old game, but in VR, that stuff doesn't matter. You're going to still feel like you're part of the game world. I absolutely recommend this game. All right, and lastly here, we have quite a good survival horror game, and this is Lies Beneath. Lies Beneath is a freakish game. There are some moments in this game where you're going to be like, wow, okay, I am definitely, feeling the chill down my spine as I'm moving through it. Now, luckily, you're not totally helpless in this game. You do have weapons, and you're able to fight off some of these horrors that you're going up against, but it's a solid game. There's a nice story there, enough content, I think, to justify the price, and plus you're going to have a couple heart-pounding moments in this game. There's no doubt about it. I think it's a great game, and it's absolutely worth your time. All right, so with our next category here, we have rhythm games, and I'm just going to say it straight up. I don't care. I know it's going to get some slack. I think Beat Saber is the most overrated VR game ever to hit the market, and I'm sure I'm going to take some heat for that comment, but I think it's so overrated, it's unbelievable. All right, now that that's out of the way, first game on this list, Pistol Whip. I don't know why you'd ever play Beat Saber over this game. Pistol Whip is so much more fun. I feel like John Wick while I'm playing the game. It's a game that, I'm not super into rhythm games. I cannot lie to you, but I loved this title and I played enough of it that it just made me feel like John Wick. So, awesome game. Lots of content in this game. Lots of songs in this game. Really definitely enjoyed this one. Next up, we have Ragnarok. Now, Ragnarok's an interesting game. There's no doubt about it. It's highly regarded in the rhythm game space because it's just a cool game in general. Like, you're pounding on drums as a freaking Viking, Nordic Viking, right? It's a good game. It's a lot of fun. You're pounding drums. You're racing other boats as you're going through it. The soundtrack is super interesting in this game. I actually thought Ragnarok was a lot of fun, and again, for somebody who's not into rhythm games, this game definitely had some nice content in it for somebody who is in rhythm games. There's no doubt about it. All right, and last up here in the rhythm games category, we have Synth Riders. Now, Synth Riders is a really cool game because you're moving forward through these beautiful levels as you're, kind of hitting the waves of the beats on these songs. And there's so much content in Synth Riders. That's what makes it amazing. There's custom songs. There's all kinds of things to do in Synth Riders. This game's really fun, and if you're in rhythm games, I would, and like I'm talking like true, like something kind of like Beat Saber. I think Synth Riders is a way better game than Beat Saber. So if you don't want to shoot or pound drums, and you just kind of want to ride the waves of music, then Synth Riders is your game. I think this is a really solid title, and it should absolutely be looked at. All right, with our next category here, we have puzzle and platformer games. Now, admittedly, I can't lie, this is not a category that I spend a ton of time into in VR, but these are some games that I've played that have been just really solid, and I really enjoyed them, right? So first up, The Room VR: A Dark Matter. This game's a really good game. It just really, honestly, it gives you such a good sense of immersion. The puzzles in this game are awesome. It's a fun game. I enjoyed this title a lot. I think, for somebody who doesn't like puzzle games to say this, I think it's a good game, and you're not going to be disappointed if you buy this. It's also highly touted amongst the VR community as one of the best puzzler games, so there is that, and, that's important, right? Obviously, the more people that say it's a good game, it is a good game, and it definitely deserves to be looked at as such. Next up, we have probably the best platformer and, most famous one for VR. We have Moss. Moss is a title where you're kind of controlling a mouse from above, and you're guiding him through this game world, completing puzzles and various tasks along your journey. This game is, I'm just not a platformer, but this game is amazing. It really is. The environments are so beautiful, and when you're able to sit there like from a bird's eye view and kind of look in and look around all the stuff you're seeing, it just gives you such a different sense of immersion, almost like you're playing with like live toys, like when you were as a kid, right? When you're playing with toys and action figures and stuff. It kind of gives you that feeling in this game, and it's just it's such an interesting title. I think this is one that cannot be overlooked in this category, and most people that buy this game, they have such an amazing experience, and if you're somebody that's into those type of games, this is one you absolutely have to pick up. And with our final pick on this puzzle list here, we have Red Matter. Now, Red Matter is a story-driven VR puzzle game, and it's set in the Cold War era, but you're on the moon of Saturn, on one of the moons of Saturn in this game, and your goal is basically to solve puzzles, move the story along, and you're investigating a top-secret project. So if that's something that you're interested in, this game's gonna get it done for you. The environments are beautiful in this game, the puzzles are enriching in this game, and it's just has some nice twists in it. This game's awesome. I loved this game a lot. I think if you're a puzzler, especially a sci-fi fan, you're gonna really combine both of those, and you're gonna put some hours into this game that are a lot of fun. You're gonna have a lot of problem solving in this game, and I definitely recommend Red Matter. I think it's a really solid puzzle game, and again, these top 3 puzzle games are the best ones that I've played available. All right, and with our last category here, this is really, there's 3 games in this list that they didn't really fit anywhere else in a specific genre, but they're 3 really, really good games that need to be talked about, and I think that if you bought any of the 3 of them, you would not be disappointed. First up, we're going to have Waltz of the Wizard: Natural Magic. This is an awesome game. I talked about it in my top 10 list for a reason. It's so much fun. You can use your native Quest 2 hand tracking on this game, so you can cast magical spells using your just bare open hands. Really cool. There's a 40-floor dungeon in this game, so there's plenty of content outside of just, you casting magical spells and doing all these cool things. Waltz of the Wizard: Natural Magic is a really fun game, and I think it deserves to be bought, especially if you're into that magical fantasy type of stuff. All right, next up we have Stride. Now, the reason why this couldn't be in a shooters list, even though you are kind of using a gun in this game, is because it's just not really like a traditional shooter where you have all these guns and you're fighting against this or fighting against that. This is like kind of a mix between a shooter and a rhythm game, as you're, really doing parkour and you're, running over walls and jumping over barriers and then shooting at people and then punching people. This is Mirror's Edge in VR. And if you're a fan of the old Mirror's Edge games, you're going to love Stride. Stride's a great game. There's a lot of content in this game right now. I really love Stride a lot, and it just didn't really fit in any category, but it absolutely deserves to be on a list of games you're potentially looking to buy. So I definitely recommend buying Stride. And lastly here, because we didn't have flight sims on this list, because there really isn't any flight simulators on Oculus Quest yet, there is just really only one flight game in general that I know of, and that is Warplanes World War I VR. This game is a lot of fun. I actually do have a review on my channel, so if you scroll back somewhere, you can find a review of this game. This game's a ton of fun, and for the for the price you're gonna pay for this game, you're gonna get a solid amount of content in it. I mean, the replay value is there. There's planes you can upgrade for, and I'm just not gonna lie to you. As I'm dogfighting somebody and I reach over the side of my plane with a flare gun and I blow their biplane up in midair, from a shot, I can't explain that feeling to you. It is so much fun. This game's a ton of fun, and I played with the planes with the most flare guns because I used to just ride around and just blow people up with the flare guns, and it's just so much fun. I love Warplanes World War I. It's a good game. It doesn't really fit in any other category, but it's certainly one that if you're looking to pilot a biplane in the World War I era and blow people away with it, you're gonna have a lot of fun playing this game. You'll be able to put at least 10 hours into this game, no doubt, probably more. So it's definitely a really solid title, and I highly recommend it. Well, guys, that is pretty much it for all the genres that is currently available on Oculus Quest. Like I said, there's really no strategy games at all on Quest, and of course there's not, I'm sure somebody will be like, well, you didn't include this niche genre. Yeah, I get it. There's not, listen, VR is still new. The main categories have some games. We're still lacking like RPGs. There's not a solid lineup yet. Obviously, there's like no strategy games at all yet. Tower defense games, there's only one, so I couldn't really put that on this list. So it's just one of those situations. But the games on this list, I think, are really good for their categories. And hopefully this answers your questions. And if you're looking for a good Quest RPG, or you're looking for a good, Quest puzzle game, you're going to find those answers within this list, and that was my goal with creating it. So I know it was a little bit of a longer video, but I appreciate you guys sticking around. Guys, I'm about to hit 10,000 subscribers. I really appreciate it, so hit that like button, subscribe to my channel, and I will see you guys in the next one.